Hopefully, as you're all here, most of you know Roger or Roger's work, and have listened to the Ffoton conversation. The fact that Roger has been working for about 60 or 70 years now in the industrial mining subject, and I would think one of the foremost photographers in the UK in that field. And when I spoke to Roger a couple of weeks ago, we started at the very beginning. Whereas today we're going to start nearer the end of Roger's work, where he went up to Kellingley Colliery in North Yorkshire and was commissioned to photograph the closure of that last deep mine in the UK. And my first question really to Roger is, how did that come about? You know, a Welsh lad, a Welsh Valley boy, being commissioned to go up to Yorkshire to photograph that.
I thought you were just going to carry on talking now.
I went on a bit then, didn't I?
Just dropping off nicely. Yeah, it was a usual thing, really, a phone call. It was I remember it was Friday before Christmas, a couple of Fridays before Christmas, I think it was early December. And I was just running things down, ready for Christmas, you know, so I was doing some editing and stuff that you do these days. And had this phone call on the top of the mountain in the Brecon Beacons. I was photographing a plane wreck. There was an assistant producer from a film company in London phoned, and she said, we're making this film for the BBC. We've been doing it for about the best part of a year. They've been documenting Kellingley for the film that's going to be out on the BBC. I don't know when it's going to be shown, but keep an eye out for it. It's going to be superb. And she said, we know your work, we've seen your work, you've photographed underground quite a lot in South Wales, you photographed the miners' strike. Would you like to come up to Kellingley for a few weeks to document the end of the last pit in the UK, the last deep mine in the UK? So I'm actually the last photographer to photograph a deep mine in the UK and go underground. You're supposed to go, wow. So that's how it started. And sometimes you get these phone calls, as you probably photographers and media people would know, and you think, oh God, I'd love to do that. But, you know, that's going to be the end of it. The assistant producer rings up, can you do it? Yes, I'd love to. Can you come up on Monday? This was a Friday, and I said, well, I'll move some things around, but yeah, it can happen. And I was thinking, it's my dream assignment. It's what I would dream about doing, is to photograph the last colliery, you know, because of my history in South Wales. And yeah, that's how it started. But then somebody else rang up from the phone company, a higher up person, a director, and said, we'd really love you to come up. I'll get my people to book you into a hotel. And that's it, really. That's how it all started.
You say they saw your work, but where did they see your work? Did they Google mining photographers, or did Roger Tiley's name come up?
Yeah,
how did that happen?
During the filming, they had certain people, certain miners that they were interviewing as part of their film, the main characters, they called them. One of the main characters was a Welsh lad called Carwyn, and he had a copy of one of my books on coal mining at Tower. And apparently they were talking, and Cowan started talking about my work, and the director said, we got to get this guy up, you know, how do we contact him? And that's how it really started, was through Carwyn saying, you know, this is what he does. If you want to contact him, that's up to you, you know, and that's how it was, really. So it was great.
So how, as a photographer then, how did you sort of approach that commission? I mean, how did you start to form a relationship with the people at Kellingley?
I went up to I went up to Yorkshire on the Monday, met up with the phone crew in the hotel. We had a meal in the evening. The phone crew, the researchers told me about the shift patterns, you know, the way the colliery runs. It was a super pit, which means that it was a very modern pit, 50 years old. They started coaling in 1965, so it was a very, very modern pit. unlike the South Wales mines that were maybe 100 years old, and they, you know, in the 80s when I photographed them going underground, you really feared for your life. They were seriously dangerous. Up in Kellingley, it was a massive area, you know, lots of buildings, everything was big. So the next morning, Tuesday morning, I was up at something like 4 o'clock in the morning. We drove to Kellingley, and then the researcher said, I'll show you around, I'll introduce you to some people, and then, you know, you can go from there. I had to have a training session with the HR people before I went underground. You know, that's just the way UK coal work. So, yeah, I met some people, did my training, which was an hour-long video. That was my training. And then they just said, you know, do what you want. You're on a shift tomorrow morning. It's a 12-hour shift underground. But for the rest of the day, just wander around, introduce yourself, get to know people. Now, Kellingley's quite interested in, you know, the miners' strike. You're all too young to remember the miners' strike. Glenn isn't. He was probably about 50 then. But in 1984-85, some miners went back to work, and they were branded scabs. Now, if you talk to anybody in the valleys these days who stayed out for the year-long strike, they still feel the same today as they did 30 years ago. And scabs are just filthy, dirty people. They will not forgive. They will not forgive. Up in Yorkshire, it was the same, but the difference was that there were scabs that went back to Kellingley during the strike. There was about 200 miners that went back. Now, Kellingley, I think, at its height in the 80s, employed somewhere around, it was either 2,000 or 4,000 people. There's a lot of miners employed there. But I was warned not to say the word scab in the pit, because if I did, I'd be escorted out straight away. And any miner that said the word scab would be sacked straight away. Now, I went to the pit canteen on the first day, and I was tipped off by one of the miners. He said, if you go into the canteen, don't say sausage, chips and beans. He said, do not say that, because it's the code word, sausage, chips and beans, S-C-A-B. If you say that, they'll just ask you to leave. So when I went into the pit canteen, I was trying my best. I wanted sausage, chips and beans, but trying to work out a way to say it in not that sequence. So yeah, but it's really important to get to know people quite quickly, and I tend not to take pictures straight away, and perhaps I miss out on quite a lot of pictures. Over my career, I've probably missed out on some really good pictures because I speak to people and because I try to get liked. And I think that relationship is really important to get that initial communication and you know, friendship, and then you start shooting the pictures. That's the way it works. Some photographers would say, you're wasting your time in doing that. You know, you're a photographer, you should be photographing straight away.
So would you say that most of your initial research was done by the company and your initial introductions?
There was just some very basic introductions. This is the manager, this is the HR guy, this is you know, the shift manager. The actual miners, no, I didn't get introduced to those. It was really down to me to do that. But when you start showing interest as well in people's lives, they sort of adhere to you straight away. They sort of like it, the fact that you really are showing interest. And my background is really from that sort of community, a mining community. So, I mean, I'm genuinely interested in that sort of industrial stuff. I'm interested in socialism, you know, I'm a socialist. I'm genuinely interested in all that sort of stuff.
So did you have an actual, obviously this is the closure of a pit, and that's your story, but did you pull on that experience of working in the Welsh mines to construct other stories around that? Yeah,
I did. It didn't take long before miners started talking about the strike. It seems to be a focal point of the mining industry to actually speak about the 84-85 strike. And when I said, yeah, I photographed that, I went to Orgreave. I don't know if you remember Orgreave with the police horses. I was there doing that. I did lots of picket lines. They were interested in my stories about what I'd witnessed on the picket lines back in South Wales.
So in some respects, you were a bit of a celebrity to them as much as the other way around. Because
Glenn.
I know. But they must have been equally as interested in your stories from that era.
Yeah.
As you're saying, they're quite young.
It was a different angle. It was a different angle because during the strike they didn't like the press, they didn't like the media, and of course, in a way, the media was controlled by the Thatcher government to a certain extent. So they
didn't take you long to get out of that, did it?
Thatcher, who's she? Yeah, but they saw me as possibly being one of them because of my background, because my relatives linked in the mining industry, and so there was a genuine link there, and we just hit it off really well. I mean, I was really anxious about driving up to Yorkshire because I didn't know, going to a different coal field, and I was tipped off that there were scabs at the pit. I didn't know exactly what their feelings were going to be. And you must remember, they were going to lose their jobs in 2 or 3 weeks' time. So they were anxious. And as you got closer to the closure, the pit closed on the 18th of December, 2015, you could see the change in atmosphere and the worry in their faces. It was becoming reality. I'm not going to get my wage anymore. What am I going to do? Are there jobs there? I'm too old. I'm too old to retrain. I'm too old to do something else. So I think, it was anxious times, but I must say that they were fantastic.
Did you find that the communities, the Welsh community, the Yorkshire community, as a mining community, were very similar? Yeah.
They were... Kellingley is slightly different in the fact that South Wales, most of the miners lived in quite close to the collieries. In Yorkshire, they began to be drawn in from different collieries. So one colliery would close. As I said, there were some Welsh miners there that went up to work in Kellingley. There were some people from Notts, some miners from Nottinghamshire. There was some from Scotland, the northeast, Newcastle. So it was quite a mixture of different accents and different people there working, which was different to what I witnessed in South Wales.
I mean, I think that's a great introduction. So I think it's maybe time to see a few pictures from that that particular time, and maybe we can put the lights down for this. If there's somebody at the back that could press a switch.
Oh. They're not the best quality on the wall, but they are sharp. Yeah, that's why I got the glasses. The first shot here, I tend to like being dirty and really into what I do. I treat my cameras really badly, really, in the fact that, it's greasy, it's dirty, it's mucky. But I like shooting in those conditions, and I just like shooting pictures of people at work. It's going back to David's course, the documentary photography in Newport. First thing we did, Glenn, was people at work. The second thing we did was relationships. Crikey, those two projects, those two themes really interlink with pretty much everything I've done over the years. So it's really important. So these are some pictures. This is taken on the coal face at Kellingley. At Kellingley, you'd actually go down in what they call the bond or the cage. You go down half a mile into the earth. It's a long way. I don't know if you've ever been to Big Pit, but it's not like that really. Big Pit is all nice and friendly and clean and health and safety and all the rest of it. You shoot down in the cage, and it's like you leave your, don't eat a breakfast before you go down because it's going to be left at the surface. So you go down half a mile, then you get on what they call the paddy, which was a a train. A train is too posh a word. It wasn't an intercity 125 or anything. It's a rickety train on a narrow gauge, and then you go somewhere about 5 miles then towards the coal face, and then after that you get off the train and you ride the conveyor belts. Now the film crew weren't allowed to ride the conveyor belts because they never did it before and they were told it was too dangerous. But as soon as I told them that I'd ridden conveyor belts in South Wales, they just said, get on. And you just dive onto a conveyor belt and it takes you into the coal face at a hell of a speed. It is, it's a bit crazy. And then you need to jump off the other end. If you don't jump off, you just die, basically. You smack up against the wall. So this is a coal face. The coal face was 9 feet high. Very different to the South Wales coal field, where coal faces may have been just 2'6". So a sheer wall of coal, 9 feet and running 400-500 meters long. Massive, massive. It was very hot underground, 30 degrees Celsius, so it was very, very hot, warmer than this tonight. Yeah, so it technically is very difficult to shoot pictures, very dark, very difficult to shoot pictures. The camera kept steaming up, so it's cleaning it all the time. But again, you know, you've heard this before, but you do get this comradeship. The miners are great, the wit. The jokes that they say and the wit was fantastic. They were brilliant to me, absolutely brilliant. So these are some of the pictures underground. So you're just using light which is available, which is basically cap lamps, the helmet lamps that you've got. I had a helmet lamp on, and then there was a miner stood next to me, so we used the shadows of the chain coming through for a portrait there. This is quite an interesting one. You can't see it very well. Are you okay at looking at these? It doesn't look right to me. They drink about 2 gallons of water each shift. They'd carry this big flask full of ice and full of water, and they'd just drink it. It was just so hot to work in these conditions. It was crazy, but horrendous. As I say, the shifts were 12 hours long, so I'd actually go for the 12-hour shift, because you couldn't just say, oh, I think I'll go back now, I've had enough. You know, you had to wait there for 12 hours, shoot pictures, and just wait to come up. You really don't think your face is getting black, but you may have seen a picture of me, which is the only portrait I've got actually. So, but you know, you do tend to get a black face quite quickly from the dust and the coal dust there. But yeah, incredible place. Do you want to ask me a question, Glenn? You've gone to sleep.
Oh, just, yeah, you're boring me to sleep.
Yeah, I know. I got to look at your eyes.
No, I'm just interested in the way that you light some of your pictures, because I was talking to Brian and Glyn from Ffoton over a coffee the other day, and I said, no, I don't think Roger uses a flash. And then I look at half of your pictures, and about half of them are using flash or creative lighting. Yeah. But I think that's something good that I don't realize you're using flash, because they're so well lit. And I know we spoke about this in the conversation we had the other week about your training at Girling and the fact that all the time you had to light and light and light. And how has that affected your style of photography, not just with the mining, but other things?
I couldn't use flash underground, so it's just available light. I come from a background where, you know, using film. I'm not a fan of uprating ISO ratings and so on, just because it's poor light. I prefer to use my settings of 400 ISO, and then I tend to use light. I may use flash outside for effect, just to bring some modeling light onto maybe a portrait. I may use bounce flash, maybe in a room like this. If I was photographing, it'd be bounce flash. I see nothing wrong with using flash. Yeah, you're right, Glenn, I do use flash a lot. But, you know, it's something that I've learned to use over the years, and I feel quite comfortable. I've got don't want to get into too much gear talk. I use a 45 Metz 45 CT1, CT2 or something, which is circa 1978. My gadget bag, my Billingham, is 1970. Oh, he's going to take a picture. 1978. Thank you, Billingham. Will you sponsor me now?
Would you say, I mean, if you're down in a mine for 12 hours, this question might seem quite stupid, but
every question is stupid.
Are you a patient photographer?
I think you have to be. I think I was shooting some pictures a couple of months ago, and there's another photographer. I tell you where it was. It was actually photographing. Is it Nigel Owen, the referee? He was refereeing the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, and I went down to his home village in West Wales to shoot some pictures in the local pub. They all had Nigel Owen masks that they had, so there's some quite interesting pictures. Another guy came in, a photographer, didn't know him. He had quite a lot of cameras and a nice lens, big lens thingy, and he said to me, "What are you doing this for?" I thought, well, I'm just shooting some pictures, just to pass the time of day, life is going on. And he got quite weary of me shooting these pictures, and he shot a few quick ones. He rushed out to his car, and he was on a laptop sending them. And I thought, to be honest, I never want to be like that, because I just want to get good pictures. And if it takes a day, if it takes 2 days, well, so be it. I'm not in that game where I have to send pictures straight away, within minutes of taking them. And I know there's photographers around, and probably some of you guys do that, and you need to do it to make a living. I'm very fortunate, I'm at the latter end of my photographic career, and I just think I'm going to shoot pictures that I want to shoot, because it's my only chance to do these things. So I really try and make the most of it.
Okay, following on from that then, I mean, most of your work is long term, so it's creating a body of work that will tell a story.
Yeah.
And I suppose that the answer to this is both, but do you look for that story in an individual picture, or are you looking for pictures to fit together?
It depends, doesn't it? If you're doing it for somebody, if you're doing it for a commissioner, then you have to think of what they want. So the Kellingley stuff, the media company in London said, we need press photos. We need press photos of all the people that are going to be in their film, press photos for the newspapers, for the Radio Times, for the website, for the BBC website, etc., etc. So there was a kind of style that they wanted. And so I shot pictures for them, for what they wanted. But when they said, look, you just go off and do your documentary stuff, you do what you do, then it's pretty much open to me. And yeah, I've got some pictures in mind, but then again, I'm not just thinking of those pictures, because other things happen as well. It's a lovely thing about Newport, is the fact that you're taught to think outside the box, to think of all the different ways that the pictures may be used, and what you want as a photographer, but also that hopefully these are going to be used in a book, and therefore you're thinking about the book, you're thinking about the run of pictures. You're talking 150 pictures for a book. You're not talking a 3-picture story, you're talking 150 pictures. So if I just took photographs underground, 150 pictures underground, it's going to be boring. So you're thinking about the whole thing, the whole concept.
Have you got any more pictures that you can show us from Kellingley now?
Are you supposed to say, is there any questions?
No.
Oh, okay. We arranged all this beforehand. He's useless. Okay, this was the last day. This was one of the last shifts going down to Kellingley. I always use the wide-angle lens. I'm not a telephoto lens person. I use a wide-angle lens for everything, and so I'm quite close in. I built this relationship by now. It's sort of more or less 2 weeks up in Yorkshire. I built this relationship with the men, And they trusted me to go in quite close and to take these. And you can see with the guy on the left, well, and the guy on the right, they're devastated, absolutely devastated. And it does pose a question, because Glenn's not going to ask me, so I'll have to ask myself. Do you take pictures in these situations? Do you just respect the atmosphere, or do you take pictures? And I think, in this situation, I built up this relationship. I think these men expected me to take pictures. They really expected me to document this. The trust had been built. So, yeah. Do you want to see another one?
Why not?
Okay, so the pit closed on the 18th of December. The final shift went down, and that was it. End of coal mining, or deep coal mining, I should say, in the UK. The Saturday, the 19th, there was a march in a little village called Nottingley, which is next to Kellingley, from the town hall to the Miners' Welfare Club. This picture was taken, this is actually Carwyn that I mentioned earlier on, the Welsh miner. He's 27 years old, so he's a young guy. He's actually gone to work for Crossrail now in London, so he's found a job straight away. So this was in the morning. It was going to be a long day, and I'm just going to show you 3 pictures now, especially for the young photographers in the room, so that, just to give you a feeling of how the day went. This is the picture from the march. There was quite a few photographers shooting this march. Again, there was photographers with their laptops just sending them back to Rex and to Getty and all the rest of it. But I was still looking for these nice. This is actually fill-in flash, by the way. So this is flash, which I used. The next one, this was the last pit party. I was the only photographer allowed to photograph the last pit party. It was in the evening. Basically all the miners and their families got together, a few drinks, a couple of musical acts, and etc., etc. And this was the feeling around the last pit party. To see grown men crying, to see tough men, tough miners crying, is pretty upsetting, really. It's not nice to do, but they trusted me. And again, there's this trust thing, Glenn, that you asked about. It's really important to build that relationship so that then these pictures can be taken. They did, on the last day, incidentally, they did tell there was a lot of press photographers at Kellingley on the last day. There were some miners that I witnessed telling photographers to piss off, get out, we don't want you. And these guys were looking at me, these press photographers, thinking, who's he then? He's got the full run of the colliery, he's got his oranges on, and the fluorescent stuff. And who is this guy? Why is he, how is he getting access to all this, and we've been told to pee off? But I'm just going to show you one last picture from this series. Like I said, it's about 150 pictures down. At the pit party, by the way, there was a film crew there. I was the only still photographer allowed. I finished shooting pictures around about 9 o'clock in the evening, and the film crew had finished doing their bit. And the film crew said, do you fancy a couple of beers? We'll get a taxi back to the hotel, and we can just enjoy ourselves now. And I said, I don't know, I need to go back to the pit. And the producer said, you're probably not going to get in now because UK Coal, they don't own it anymore. It's taken over by the people who own the land. And I said, is that me squeaking?
It's the mic.
Oh, sorry. So I said, I'm going to give it a go. I think I'll go back to the pit. There was something inside me. By the way, the day before I got really upset over things, and maybe Glenn will bring some props into it. Maybe. I went back to the pit. Security said, "Oh, I don't know. You know, we're not allowed to let you in anymore." And I said, "Oh, come on, I'm from Wales." And it always works. And they said, "Yeah, okay, go on, just for you." So I went into the pit. It was really quiet. It was really eerie. There were lights on in the offices, but it was empty. It was awful. I could hear a noise in a room, and so I just opened the door, and this guy was there. And I said, "I'm just wandering around, you know, I'm going to take some pictures." And I got talking to him. He said, "Do you want a cup of tea?" Made me a cup of tea, really nice guy. And he worked for a company which was not UK coal, it was SIS, is it written on his top there? His job was to press the mouse and a few clicks on the computer to shut down the underground workings, to shut down the ventilation, the lighting, all the stuff. That was his job. So I said, "Do you mind if I shoot some pictures?" And he said, yeah, okay. This picture, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to shut down the colliery. And I think this picture shows it. His hand is just hovering above the mouse because he knew that once that's done, that's it basically. The methane will build up, it will start flooding. That's the end of it. That's the end. So I actually witnessed him shutting down the pit, which, so this picture is quite iconic.
Yeah, it must have been a very emotional time. And as you said just now, that you're confronted by men crying.
Yeah.
But even that led to lighter moments, and you were given some presents, some keepsakes.
Yeah, here we go. What's this now?
Cameras up.
Cameras all. Okay. The last shift came up from the colliery. There's a couple of miners came up to me. It was really touching. There's a guy called Gary, and he came up to me, and he gave me these pants. They were brand new, by the way, at the time. I've worn them quite a lot, so they're a bit washed out. They're my lucky pants. Yeah, he gave me the pants, and I just laughed. I thought, "What's this about? You're joking?" And I could see he was crying, and he just hugged me, and he said, "Thank you so much for photographing us, and you know, being such a good friend." Yeah. So some other miners gave me coal. They actually brought some coal up from the last shift for me and gave me the coal. A very touching experience, and this, Glenn, is really one of the fantastic things about being a photographer, is to witness these things. And I'm just a fake photographer. I just like meeting people. I like witnessing events, and I've been lucky enough to do that throughout my career.
Yeah, I mean, in the words of David Hurn, without embarrassing him, but you have to be there to take it.
Oh yeah, he told me that having a coffee.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, that's the beauty of being a photographer. You're put into these situations.
Yeah.
I think you've got one more picture from Kellingley to show us.
Yeah, this is the nice side. This is one of the guys who worked underground. He opened a sandwich shop up in Yorkshire. This was his first day. He said, "Come along and take pictures of my sandwich shop on the first day." You can see the guy outside just putting his new sign up. And he's just putting stuff in his fridge ready for his new life as a sandwich shop owner. Quite a few of the miners have got jobs. Facebook is a wonderful thing. I'm linked to the Kellingley Miners Association on Facebook, and I keep in touch with them. And yeah, it's lovely, fantastic guys. I've met some of their families as well. When I went back after Christmas, I've been back a few times, and one family took me to a mining museum. We just had a day together, and they bought me this little miner's statue. Lovely experiences, you know, ones that I'll never forget. And that's the lovely thing through my career, is that we as photographers have access to these wonderful things in life, you know, these wonderful people. Amazing, amazing.
I mean, if we look at your work, I suppose people would say it is traditional documentary photography. And the way that documentary photography has moved, we move in fashions. And I just wonder if you've ever been tempted. I know where this is. You know where this is going, don't you? To get your work to fit into the sort of the more modern style of. And I know the story, so carry on.
If you've listened to the Ffoton thing, there's a crisp packet involved, so there we go. That's for you to photograph afterwards. Really good project to work on there. No. I did an MA back in 1996, did a part-time MA, mid-career thing in documentary photography at Newport, thinking it would replenish my time at Newport in 1982. It was totally different to that. It was surreal, to say the least. But I felt for a while, should I change my style? I was told that I was traditional, old-fashioned, black and white. It's all gone. All that stuff is gone. We're postmodernists now. We don't do that sort of stuff. But I realised, and that was by fellow students, by the way, not by the lecturing staff. Paul Seawright was he's a fantastic guy, wonderful pictures. But I just felt, no, I should stick to what I do. And I was lucky during that time. I was commissioned to photograph at Tower Colliery. And then I won a commission to go out to America to photograph. I couldn't change my style because those commissioners expected me to do what I did. And to just change my style because it's fashionable would have been ridiculous. You know, I didn't want to do it anyway. I always photograph things that interest me. Otherwise, what's the point? You know, what's the point in doing something you don't really want to do? And coming up with a 3 A4 pages of absolute bullshit of why I've taken this picture. I don't do it, okay? I admire people who do a nice body of work, which means a lot. You know, Paul Seawright did the Irish thing, his Northern Ireland background. Beautiful pictures and really meaningful. New documentary, but it's not something I would be doing. So, you know, no, I stick to my guns. But I do colour now. I've realised that you can take colour photos. But that's great, yeah.
I know you don't do much in the sense of press work and editorial work.
No.
But I know that you keep a keen eye on things, and I wondered, because there's a lot of people in here that may go down that route. I mean, do you see a difference? Because you have done it. Do you see a difference of when you were working for The Guardian, The Times, the whatever, to now? Has it changed much, do you think?
Yeah. It wasn't easier in the 80s. Some people might say, yeah, but it was easy in the 80s. There weren't that many photographers around. You know, you had to know what you were doing. You couldn't just, everyone couldn't be a photographer. But still, in the 80s, there was a lot of competition. You had to produce reasonably good work to get it in The Guardian, The Times, and all the rest of it. I think today, and I don't want to talk about financial stuff too much, but I think today maybe picture editors expect photographs to be a lot cheaper than they were in the 80s. You know, I think news agencies, picture agencies, selling pictures and giving the photographer, 50% at best. You know, I find that a disgrace. I think Getty giving 15% in some circumstances. Well, you know, the photograph is worth that. You know, it's not worth it. I find that really annoying. But you've got a lot of people who think they're photographers. They flood the market, and therefore maybe their pictures are going to get used. I don't know. But it's something that I find quite sad. But in saying that, the flip side is that photography is very buoyant. I think there's a lot of markets for photography. What I'd say to young photographers is do things that you're really interested in and really feel passionate about. Look at subjects that you really feel passionate about. And if you produce good work, there's going to be good markets for them. You know, somebody will pick you up and say, your work is brilliant. You know, we'll take that and we'll pay you a decent amount of money for it.
Okay, I'm talking about pictures. Let's have a look at what you've got.
Right, okay, now. Okay, I was a full-time lecturer for 27 years. And I escaped last August. But I've always been a photographer. I don't think you can lecture. You can't practice. If you don't practice what you preach, you shouldn't be doing it. So I've always been a photographer throughout my career as a teacher. But now I've been let loose, and I've got a list of projects that I'd like to work on that I'm not going to live long enough. I'm going to have to be about 160 to do them all. But one thing I felt I wanted to do, and Glenn we were talking earlier, was the trans culture. There was a program on a couple of weeks ago about transvestites. So I thought I'd get in contact with some transvestites that lived quite close in the Swansea Valley to where I lived. There was a party about 2 weeks ago this was, and Paul, the guy who was running it, he said, come along. So I did, went to the party. It was a house full, there must have been about 100 people in this small house. It was crazy. And I started shooting pictures. The police lady on the right-hand side, I've got to tell you this story, it's just crazy. The police lady on the right-hand side, her car was blocking somebody else's. She had thigh-high boots on, laced up. She said, he said, I'm not sure, politically correct, I don't know. She said, can you move my car? To me. All right, I said, yeah, give me the key. She said, right, it's a Ford Focus. So I went out, it was an awful night, it was absolutely hammering down the rain. Sat in the car. So she comes and sits next door to me in the passenger side. And I said, it's okay, you can go back into the park. No, it's all right, it's all right. So I thought, I hope I don't see anybody I know now. This is a couple of miles from my house. So I looked in the wing mirror, and there was another lady going, left hand down, and I just slumped into the seat. I could just look above the steering wheel, and I reversed the car out. But great fun. The guy on the left was the one saying, left hand down at the back. You know, can you imagine like somebody saying, all right, Rog? Yeah, how's things? But great bunch of people again, great bunch of people, lovely. But, this is something else I'm working on as well. I can't say too much at the moment about these things because there's publishers involved, but you know, things sometimes work, sometimes they don't. But this is something else I'm working on. Ask me a question, Glenn.
No, I want you to carry on. Sure.
Is it? Are we nearly done?
Yeah.
Okay, so I went out to America, to the Appalachia area down in West Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia and Tennessee. Back in 1997 this was, and shot these pictures for a commission out there. It's great when you get a commission and they just say, just shoot whatever you want, you know, it's your project, you know, you do whatever you want. So I went to the coal camps, the old coal camps, and in these areas it's pretty much like Wales, pretty much like Britain. Coal mining has suffered quite a lot and they've pretty much gone. So there's a couple of pictures from that here. Obviously there's gun culture out there. This reverts back to your question again, Glenn, was communication, relationships. How do you get into somebody's house and ask them to show you their guns? I don't know, it just happens with me. It just happens. But these two young ladies were lovely. But they had a shotgun. The shotgun was for shooting bears. The hand pistol was for shooting people. So anybody that messed around with them, boom. And they were actually loading it. It was, you know, pretty attractive girls loading a gun within seconds. It was quite scary, really. They didn't do the John Wayne thing and roll it around, but besides that, okay. This was a picture taken back very early on, back in the 1983. Yeah, have you noticed it there? That's Glenn, actually, yeah. Yeah, so this picture was taken quite a while ago. It was the Falklands Victory Parade back in 1983. I'm not a street photographer, but when you do, I've done a lot of demonstrations, a lot of marches in my time, especially with the miners' strike. You tend to look for different things. So if there's a crowd watching, you tend to look at the crowd and, you know, just shy away from the obvious pictures that maybe. So yeah, this is what this one's about. There's just one. If you listen to the Ffoton conversation with Glenn and I, you probably know that I thumped a policeman. You're not here tonight, are you, Mr. Policeman?
Got to tell you that.
Yeah, the curtain, oh, he's behind
This is your
Sorry about that, Nick. Good job there. Just close your ears to that. Yeah, picket lines are crazy. Again, the young photographers, I was getting up in the morning at ridiculous o'clock to go to the picket lines. The police sometimes were stopping flying pickets and press people from going to the actual picket line. So you'd have to walk over the mountain to get to a picket line, so you'd have to avoid the police, which was a normal thing. But you know, getting up early in the morning is something that I really just do. I'm always up early in the morning and out shooting pictures. The morning is a really good time anyway, when hopefully most photographers are in bed. So yeah. Picture for the BBC. I've done various stuff for the BBC. This is one of the pictures. You know, going into people's homes is sometimes quite difficult. You need to work your way around that. This wasn't organised. It was just me going around and talking to people and then invited into a house. I was commissioned to do the closure of Ebervale Steelworks back in 2002, which of course is all newsworthy now with Tata and Port Talbot and Llanwern and so on. So yeah, and there's one more picture, which is the first ever picture I took, a documentary picture back in, I thought it was about 1980, but it was more 1978, 79. So this is the first documentary picture I took all those years ago. And this picture I took to a photo gallery back in when it was a shed in Charles Street, just up the road. And there was a guy called Bill Messer there, and I showed him this picture, and he said, you should apply to Newport, you know, David Hurn's course. That's what I did. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. As usual, we just have to wind you up and away you go. And it's been a fascinating 50 minutes. Some great stories, some great insights into the work that you've done in the past and more recently, especially the pants. So I have to thank you very much.